Hello, I'm here with Matthew from JLL. Matthew, you've had a really long career in AV. You've served across multiple roles, and the question I want to ask you is, where does the conversation around tech reside in the process of buildings getting up and running?
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. I've been in the industry for a long time and I've seen things evolve. I've had lots of conversations around tech and how it's going to be used in the office. And the more I've looked into it, the more I've realized that the corporate real estate world is actually driving a lot of that conversation. And when we are talking about corporate real estate driving the question, it's about how does the technology enable an office space to function in the modern context. Everyone's driving for agile work, work from anywhere, work from home. I won't use the acronym you told me earlier, but essentially people want flexibility. The technology needs to be embedded into the fabric of an office in order to enable that flexibility. So having that conversation very early on in the piece with the corporate real estate teams becomes very important. And obviously a company like JLL, we have in-house workplace strategy teams that work with clients about helping them decide how much space do I need, how many desks do I need per person, is it completely agile or is there a portion of the office which is assigned desks, other parts which are flexible desking, what's the ratio between amenities like collaboration spaces versus meeting rooms versus assigned offices and all that type of thing. That team needs to know how technology can work in order to enable the office to function. So I strongly believe, and by virtue of the fact of where I'm moving towards, that conversation is moving up the chain. And being inside an organization like JLL, I can start to have that conversation quite early on.
Yeah, and from your answer, it seems that the early refrain or the constant refrain I always hear is you need to start talking about tech earlier, and that has happened. Right? It's moving up in the chain. The conversation around tech is happening more and more. But from your answer, it looks like corporate real estate is taking ownership of it, and AV isn't really moving up in the chain along with the conversation. Do you think we need the AV professional in early as well, or do you think that is a conversation that corporate real estate should helm along with the user, and then the expertise of AV can actually be brought in later?
The sooner we can start having the conversation, the better from my perspective. At the end of the day, when you're making decisions about how the office is going to function, if you don't take into account how the technology, and particularly the AV technology, is going to operate within that space, and it's brought in late in the piece, you then have to make more compromises. If you can have the conversation early in the piece, it becomes part of the overall strategy for the office and the way it gets executed. So the sooner you can have that, and if you can be at the table when decisions are being made about the size of a floor plate, whether you have multiple layers within an office or you try and put everything onto one floor, etc. If you are having that conversation early on, you can help drive the conversation to make sure that all of the technology interfaces are accounted for right from the get-go. So then when you're executing the project, you're not compromising.
The last thing I kind of want to pick your brain about is the shape of the conversation, right? Just listening to you talk, right? We're talking about agile workspaces, we're talking about floor plans, we're delving really into not just real estate, but also HR policies and things like that. How do you think the shape of this conversation is going to evolve? Because obviously tech has become very important. New people are now talking about it. They're using their own wordings, their own jargon. And I feel that the discussion around tech isn't necessarily around, I need 3 microphones anymore. It's become much more.
Well, yeah, it is much more. And look, at the end of the day, when we're operating in a corporate environment, we have a whole set of tools that we need to use in order to collaborate. And you're right, it's not just a whiteboard and a pen anymore. There's all sorts of different devices that you have your information on. And of course, as individuals, when we're looking at consumer level technology, like an iPhone or an Android phone, it just works. It's simple. So when you walk into an environment in an office, it just needs to work. If you're not having that conversation like I say, from the outset and setting your strategies, you end up with compromises and you have to have multiple cables just to get one session going in a presentation, and it frustrates everybody. So the more the technology guys can get to the table and have the conversation early and set the strategies early, the better off we'll be, and then the more uptake there will be from the end users.
Matthew, thank you so much for your time.